Hello dear learners, welcome to the class. The topic for today's discussion is Committees and Commissions on Panchayati Raj constituted by Government of India. The various committees constituted by the Government of India to revitalize, revamp and give a new lease of life to the institutions of grassroots democracy. Students, we shall be discussing this topic under the following headings: Introduction, Important Committees, Balwant Rai Mehta Committee 1956, Ashok Mehta Committee 1978, Hanumantha Rao Committee 1983, GVK Rao Committee 1985, LM Singhvi Committee 1986, Sarkaria Commission 1988, Thungon Committee 1988 and conclusion. Introduction. Panchayati Raj in India is a system of local self-government under which the people in rural areas have taken on themselves the responsibilities for their socio-economic and cultural development. Basically, it is an arrangement for popular participation in the administration of local affairs. Some type of local institutions or others have always been in existence in India. After independence, our experience on village autonomy, stress on decentralization and adherence to socialist and Gandhian ideals led to the establishment of Panchayati Raj institutions. Since then, efforts have been continuously made to revitalize PRIs and the governments have reiterated their stand on increased decentralization from time to time. So, students, with the beginning of the planned process, that is 5-year plans in 1952, the development process was started and the need was felt to involve the people in this development process. Various 5-year plans emphasized the importance and role of the local governments, which could play a very important role in the development of the rural masses. And in this context, Government of India established various commissions and committees from time to time to revitalize and give a new lease of life to these institutions of grassroots democracy. Important committees are Local Finance Committee 1951, Balwant Rai Mehta Committee 1956, the Committee on the Training of Municipal Employees 1963, Ashok Mehta Committee 1978, Hanumantha Rao Committee 1983, GVR Rao Committee 1985, LM Singhvi Committee 1986, Sarkaria Commission 1988, PK Thungon Committee 1988. So, students, these are the various committees constituted by the Government of India from time to time. Here we shall be discussing the major committees one by one. First of all, Balwant Rai Mehta Committee 1956. The Community Development Program was launched in 1952. It relied on self-help to arouse enthusiasm among rural people, which in turn would trigger off development. It was later on substituted by National Extension Service, but both of these programs suffered from drawbacks. As a result, the Planning Commission appointed in 1956 a study team under the chairmanship of Shri Balwant Rai Mehta to study and report on community projects and National Extension Service. The study team submitted its report in 1957, which is known as the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee report. So, students, after the Community Development Program and National Extension Scheme was launched in 1952 and it failed to deliver the results, so government decided to appoint a study team to inquire into the situation of these programs, and under the chairmanship of Shri Balwant Rai Mehta, who was the Chief Minister of Gujarat and a freedom fighter, government appointed a study team and it submitted its report in 1957, which is known as the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee report. The committee suggested for establishment of Panchayati Raj or democratic decentralization. It was felt that popular enthusiasm could be sustained only when the development machinery works under the elected representatives of the people. They therefore recommended devolution of development and decentralization of machinery of administration with adequate delegation of powers to the Panchayati Raj institutions. It recommended the setting up of elected and organically linked democratic bodies at the village, block and district levels and entrusting of all planning and development activities to these bodies. So, the students, this Balwant Rai Mehta committee suggested that it was the lack of the enthusiasm amongst the masses, amongst the rural people, which was a major drawback behind the failure of the community development and national expansion scheme. So, it suggested that it recommended that these grassroots institutions of grassroots democracy should be popularly elected, then only it will become a success. So, it suggested for setting up of elected grassroots bodies. The major recommendations of Balwant Rai Mehta committee on democratic decentralization were: there should be a 3-tier structure of local government, from the village to the district, with village at the bottom and the district at the top, with its intermediate link of institutions all organically linked to one another. There should be genuine transfer of power and responsibility to these institutions of local government. Adequate resources should be transferred to these bodies to enable them to discharge those responsibilities. All programs of social and economic development formulated through the network of planning should be channeled through those institutions. The whole system of Panchayati Raj should facilitate further devolution and dispersal of power, responsibilities and resources in the future. The students, Balwant Rai Mehta committee made recommendation for setting up of a 3-tier structure of rural local government, that is at the village level Gram Panchayat, at the district level Jila Parishad and at the middle level, that is at the intermediate level, Panchayat Samiti or Block Samiti. And it recommended that it is the block level which is the pivot of development, and here community participation is most vital. Hence, Panchayat Samiti should be given a statutory status. It should be a elective body. Jila Parishad at the district level should be purely a coordinative and advisory body, and no, it should be not be given any executive authority. Then all the rural programs for the rural population should be channeled through these PRI institutions. The recommendations of the Balwant Rai Mehta committee was accepted by the National Development Council in 1958, and various states in India started the implementation of the scheme of Panchayati Raj. The first PR system in India was inaugurated in the state of Rajasthan in Nagaur district in 1959, and soon Arunachal Pradesh and other various states also followed the suit and started establishing their PR bodies one by one. Ashok Mehta Committee 1978. Despite the advantages and the initial enthusiasm, the Panchayati Raj institution could retain their charm only for a few years. By the middle of 1960s, these institutions began to stagnate and faced indifference and lack of interest on the part of state governments. So, by the beginning of 1970s, these institutions began to decline. Therefore, by 1977, the Panchayati Raj institutions had become ineffective in most of the states. It was in that year that Janata Party government came into power at the centre, which appointed committee under the chairmanship of Ashok Mehta to revitalize these institutions. So, students, despite the initial enthusiasm, the PRI bodies could not retain their charm, and these bodies started declining in various states. Various factors were responsible for their decline. like indifference and hostile attitude of bureaucracy, lack of political will. Elections to these bodies were not held for many years. Development functions were really not relegated to them. There was a lack of financial resources. PRIs were dominated by the economically and privileged sections of the society. So, the government under the chairmanship of Ashok Mehta appointed a committee to inquire into the sorry situation of PRIs and suggesting the measures to rectify this situation. The committee made the following recommendations. It recommended 2 tier Panchayati Raj institutions, one at the district level and other at the mandal level. Mandal Panchayat would be smaller than the Panchayat Samiti but bigger than the village Panchayat. District rather than block should be primary unit of devolution. To achieve financial self-reliance, the Panchayati Raj institutions should be given power of compulsory taxation. Political parties should be allowed to participate in elections for these institutions. There should be no supersession of these institutions on partisan considerations. In case supersession has taken place, elections to that body must be held within 6 months. Panchayati Raj institutions should be subjected to social audit to be conducted by a district agency as well as by a committee of legislators. In order to reduce the migration of village people to the cities by the pull factor, the PRIs should endeavour to provide urban amenities. So, students, the Ashok Mehta committee in all made 132 recommendations. First of all, the committee refused to accept the point that the PRIs is regarded as a failed god, which was said about the PRI institutions, and the recommendations of the committee were very much new or innovative in many ways. The most momentous recommendation of the committee was that instead of 3 tier, it suggested for a 2 tier PRI institutions. First of all, at the district level, that is at the Zilla level, Zilla Parishad, and at the mandal level, that is group of villages, a mandal panchayat. District was the first point of decentralization under popular supervision below the state level. Then below the district would be group of villages which will constitute and make a mandal panchayat. Next, this Ashok Mehta committee pleaded for the role and participation of political parties in the PR bodies to make them more accountable and link them to the political process at the higher level. The report of Ashok Mehta committee came in 1978, but before any action could be taken on report, the Janata government went out of power at the centre. Though the recommendations of the committee was considered by a conference of chief ministers held in 1979, which favoured the continuance of 3 tier system. They suggested the drawing up of a model bill which should be adopted and enacted by states with necessary modifications to suit the local needs. Next is Hanumantha Rao committee. Another committee headed by Professor C.H. Hanumantha Rao in 1984 went into the question of evolving methodology for district level planning and recommended that planning process at the district level should be sufficiently decentralized, having a good deal of autonomy, administrative and technical capability and financial adequacy. The committee advocated separate district planning bodies under either the district collector or a minister. Students, in 1984, government appointed another committee under the chairmanship of Professor C.H. Hanumantha Rao, and this committee suggested to make the district as the pivot of the local governance. It suggested for establishing a separate bodies for district planning, which should be placed directly under either a minister or a district collector. Next is G.V.K. Rao committee. Planning Commission in 1985 appointed a 12-member committee under the chairmanship of Dr. G.V.K. Rao for reviewing the administrative arrangements for rural development and their relationship with the administrative setup. The committee wanted to activate the Panchayati Raj institutions in order to make them effective for handling local people's problem. Students, when the PR bodies failed to deliver the results, Planning Commission in 1985 appointed a 12-member committee under the chairmanship of G.V.K. Rao for reviewing the administrative arrangements of the rural governments and suggesting the measures for their revitalization. Recommendations of the committee were: the district should be the basic unit for policy planning and program implementation. Zilla Parishad at district level should become the principal body for the management of all development programs which can be handled at that level. The block development officer should be the sheet anchor of the entire rural development process. He should be redesignated as Assistant Development Commissioner. He should be responsible for planning and implementation of development programs. There should be subcommittee at the district level with proportional representation. Some planning functions of the state level may have to be transferred to the district level for effective decentralized district planning. Elections of rural local bodies should be held regularly. So, students, this committee, G.V.K. Rao committees made the numerous recommendations, like it suggested that Zilla Parishad at the district level should become the main important body for all the management of development programs at the local level. Then it suggested that BDO, Block Development Officer, it should be the main officer and he should be designated as Assistant Development Commissioner, responsible for planning and execution and implementation of all development programs policies. Then there should be a subcommittee at the district level. Some planning functions at the state level should be transferred to the district for the effective decentralized planning, and most importantly, elections should be held regularly to these PRI bodies. After receiving the report of the committee, then Prime Minister Shri Rajiv Gandhi organized All India Sarpanch Conference in New Delhi to ascertain their viewpoints. Next is L.M. Singhvi Committee. An 8-member committee headed by L.M. Singhvi, a constitutional expert, was appointed by the government in 1986 to prepare a concept paper on Panchayati Raj institutions, to review the growth, present status and functions of these institutions and suggest remedies to make these institutions effective in the task of rural development and nation building. Students, in 1986, an 8-member committee under the chairmanship of L.M. Singhvi, an eminent Indian jurist, parliamentarian and constitutional expert, was appointed by the government, and it was entrusted with the task to prepare a concept paper on Panchayati Raj institutions in the country, to review its growth, its present status and suggest remedies for the effective task of rural development and nation building. Now, this recommendations of this committee: establishment of local self-government should be constitutionally recognized, protected and preserved by inclusion of a new chapter in the constitution. Village should be reorganized to make more viable village panchayats. Small villages should be grouped together and enlarged. Regular elections to be held to the Panchayati Raj institutions. Participation of individuals attached to political parties should be discouraged. The Nyay Panchayat should be given functions of mediation and settling of issues. Establishment of a Panchayati Raj judicial tribunal in each state to adjudicate on all matters relating to election, disputes, supersessions, etc. of the panchayats. So, students, this L.M. Singhvi committee made various recommendations. First of all, it declared that local self-government should be made the third tier of the governance, that is, it should be the third part of the governance. This committee gave importance to Gram Sabha. Gram Sabha was viewed as the seedbed of democracy. Then a major recommendation of the committee was inclusion of a new chapter in the constitution that would give a constitutional status to these PRI bodies, and it would make the identity and integrity of PRIs inviolate. And again this committee as opposed to the Ashok Mehta committee, which suggested for the elections of the PRI bodies on the party basis, party lines, LM Singhvi committee said a consensus should be evolved among the political parties to avoid elections on the party basis to these PRI bodies. Next is Sarkaria Commission. In the year 1988, Sarkaria Commission was inquiring into the federal structure, particularly with regard to center-state relations, also made a passing remark in its report on nature of rural and urban local self-government. The commission observed that many of the local self-governing bodies were not functioning effectively, mainly because elections to these bodies was being superseded. The need of uniformity of law in the states regarding holding of periodical elections and supersession of Panchayati Raj bodies was also emphasized. It said that though the PRIs is exclusively a state subject in view of entry 5 in list 2, nevertheless uniformity of law throughout the country in regard to these institutions is essential. This can be achieved by either all the state legislatures passing legislation in accordance with a model bill prepared by the interstate council, or by a law passed by parliament at the request and consent of all state legislatures. Students, the clash of interest between the center and state caused many disturbances in the functioning of democratic machinery. So, the Ministry of Home Affairs appointed a commission, established a commission to review the relations, center-state relations, which is known as the Sarkaria Commission. It was under the chairmanship of Justice R.S. Sarkaria, a retired Supreme Court judge. This commission was established. Now, Sarkaria Commission was appointed basically to review the constitutional provisions dealing with center-state relations, and its recommendations about the Panchayati Raj institutions was only incidental. Sarkaria Commission recommended that first of all the states collectively should pass legislations for the PR bodies on the recommendations of the interstate council, or the central parliament should, at the request of all the state legislatures, should pass legislations for the PR bodies in the country. Commission observed that many of the local bodies were not functioning effectively due to the supersession of these bodies, and periodical elections were not held. So, it recommended for the passing of a legislation for maintaining regularity of elections to these PR bodies. Next is Thungon Committee. The committee, known after the name of its chairman P.K. Thungon, was a subcommittee of the Consultative Committee of Parliament, attached to the Union Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions. It was constituted to consider the type of political and administrative structure in the district for district planning. The committee recommended giving constitutional status to the PRIs. It considered Zilla Parishad to be the plot of planning and development in the district and to be the most effective level in the Panchayati Raj system. It recommended that district collector should be the chief executive officer of the Zilla Parishad. The PRI should have a 5-year term and should not remain superseded for more than 6 months. It gave a detailed list of subjects which are to be given to PRIs and which should be incorporated in the constitution. It also recommended for the setting up of a state finance commission to lay down the criteria and guidelines for devolution of financial resources to the PRIs. Students, in the same year when Sarkaria Commission was appointed, government appointed another committee to inquire into the conditions of the PR bodies in the country, known as the Thungon Committee, under the chairmanship of P.K. Thungon, former Chief Minister of Arunachal Pradesh, and it was attached to the Parliament. It was attached to the Union Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions. The committee made various recommendations. First of all, it suggested in the same way for the giving constitutional status to the PRIs, that is passing of a law and adding a new chapter in the constitution. Then this committee suggested that district should be the pivot of the administration. Zilla Parishad is important, and it is the most effective level in the Panchayati Raj system. Then district collector should be the chief executive officer of the Zilla Parishad. Then PRI bodies should have a term of 5 years, and they should not be remain superseded for more than 6 months. And again, it also suggested for the establishment of a state finance commission to inquire and to look after the financial conditions of these PR bodies. The net result of the recommendations of various committees and commissions on Panchayati Raj institutions generated a strong realization that there was a need to create a strong third layer of governance, which would help the rural community to influence its own future. To materialize this, it was considered necessary to give constitutional recognition to the third layer of governance. All political parties by and large arrived to the conclusion that it was high time to give constitutional status to PRIs. Thus, it was against the backdrop of these recommendations by various committees and commissions that the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Bill was passed by the Parliament in 1992. So, students, on the basis of the various recommendations made by the various commissions and committees set up by the Government of India from time to time, it was realized that now it was high time that we should give constitutional status to these bodies of rural local governance. They should be now regarded as the third layer of governance, and it was considered necessary, and a consensus was evolved amongst the all political parties that constitutional amendment is required to give the constitutional status to the PR bodies. And in this series, 73rd Constitutional Amendment Bill was passed by the Parliament in 1992, which is a landmark law bill giving constitutional status to the PR bodies. Conclusion. The various committees and commissions emphasized the transfer of power to local self-government institutions and people's participation in the development process, and gave valuable suggestions for revamping the local bodies. The above discussion shows that there is no dearth of ideas and expert opinion, but what lacked was consistency in thinking and political will to implement the concept of decentralized planning and development in a multi-level framework and create PRIs in that framework, which are democratic, autonomous, financially strong, capable of formulating and implementing plans for their respective areas and provide decentralized administration to the people. So, students, to conclude, we see that various committees and commissions established from time to time by the Government of India emphasized the transfer of power to the local self-government, that is to the masses. These institutions are very much important for the people's participation in their development process, and all these committees gave very valuable suggestions for the revitalizing and revamping the rural local bodies and give a new lease of life to these local bodies. So, students, in today's lecture we have discussed about the various committees and commissions established by the government to revitalize the rural local governance. In this series we have discussed about the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee, Ashok Mehta Committee, Hanumantha Rao Committee, LM Singhvi Committee, PK Thungon Committee, and we saw that all these committees made various important suggestions regarding the PRIs, and government received these reports and worked and finally gave constitutional status to the PRI bodies in 1992 by the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Bill. I hope this lecture will prove beneficial. Thank you.